I want you to picture a scenario.
Okay.
And it's one that it plays out in nightmares for a lot of people, but for language learners, it's just a Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
You're standing in line, could be a bakery in Paris, a bus station in Tokyo, maybe a coffee shop right here in New York. You've, rehearsed the sentence in your head maybe a dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
You know the vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
You know the conjugation. You are, like, intellectually prepared. You're ready.
And then the person behind the counter looks at you.
Exactly. They look at you, maybe they raise an eyebrow, and they ask a simple question. And then just silence.
The total system crash.
A complete shutdown.
Yeah.
Your heart is just hammering against your ribs. Your palms get all sweaty.
Yeah.
And your mind, which was like full of verbs and nouns 3 seconds ago,
Yeah.
is suddenly just a blank whiteboard.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't know the answer. It's that you physically cannot produce it. You open your mouth and maybe a little squeak comes out or maybe nothing at all.
It's the universal freeze response. And I think it's so important to understand right off the bat that this isn't some kind of character flaw.
Huh.
It's not a lack of intelligence. It's a biological hijack. When you feel that social threat, the threat of looking foolish or incompetent, your amygdala, it just takes over. It triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response. And unfortunately for language learners, freeze is kind of the default setting. It literally cuts off access to your prefrontal cortex, which is exactly where your language skills live. So you are chemically prevented from speaking.
Which is so frustrating because it makes you feel like all those hours of study,
Yeah.
the flashcards, the apps, it was all wasted.
Totally.
But that is exactly what we are tackling today.
Yeah.
We're doing a deep dive into this fascinating source from the English podcast titled Afraid to Speak English. Start with this. And what struck me immediately about this material is that it doesn't offer the usual advice. There's no, just believe in yourself stuff here.
No, and thank goodness for that. I mean, telling someone with genuine performance anxiety to just be confident is completely useless.
Yeah.
It's like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off. What this source offers instead is a structural solution. It's a 10-step roadmap based on a psychological concept called graded exposure.
Graded exposure. Okay, that sounds pretty clinical.
It is. I mean, it's often used in treating phobias. If you're terrified of spiders, you don't start by holding a tarantula, right?
Right.
You start by looking at a cartoon drawing of a spider. Then a photo, then maybe a dead spider in a jar. You slowly sort of acclimatize the brain to the stimulus so that fear response doesn't trigger.
And this plan applies that same idea to speaking English.
Exactly the same methodology. It moves you from, say, talking to yourself in an empty room all the way to a spontaneous conversation with a stranger without ever tripping that big red panic switch.
Okay, so before we unpack all the steps, and there are 10 specific ones to get through, I really want to talk about David. The source material leans heavily on his story, and I think for a lot of our listeners, this is going to feel uncomfortably familiar.
David is the perfect case study because he really represents what you could call the academic trap. He spent 2 years studying Spanish in college.
Right.
2 full years of exams, essays, grammar drills. So on paper, David was an intermediate, maybe even an advanced student. He had all the data in his head.
But the output mechanism was just broken.
Completely. He talks about going to parties where he knew Spanish speakers would be there, and instead of seeing that as an opportunity, he saw it as a threat. He would literally hide.
Hide, like actually hide.
Yeah, he'd duck into the bathroom or pretend to be on his phone in a corner just to avoid the possibility of an interaction.
Wow. That's extreme avoidance. That's not just being shy. That's a full-on survival mechanism kicking in.
Exactly. He was terrified of what he called the reveal. He believed that the moment he opened his mouth, he'd expose himself as a fraud. He thought he'd sound stupid, and that social judgment felt like a physical danger to him.
So what changed? Because the source mentions he spent a summer in Mexico.
Well, it wasn't a magic fix. He didn't just step off the plane and suddenly start reciting poetry or anything.
I'd imagine not.
No, the first few days were apparently agonizing. He made mistakes constantly, he stumbled, he used the wrong words. But then he collected this really crucial piece of data. The world didn't end.
Nobody laughed at him.
Nobody laughed, nobody pointed, nobody mocked him. In fact, people were generally pretty patient and helpful. And he realized his fear was, well, it was largely a hallucination. He had projected this cruel audience that just didn't exist.
We do that all the time, right?
Yeah, it's a phenomenon we call the spotlight effect. We think everyone is scrutinizing our every move. But in reality, most people are just trying to get through their own day. They aren't grading you.
That realization is kind of the foundation for this whole deep dive. But there's a caveat here that I found really, really refreshing. The source, the hosts, Emily and David, they make a claim right at the start that might sound discouraging, but I actually think it's liberating. They say you will never feel completely ready.
And that is the core philosophy. It's so important. If you're waiting for the day you wake up with zero anxiety about speaking, you will be waiting forever.
Right.
The goal of this 10-step plan isn't to eliminate the fear before you start. It's to build the capacity to act despite the fear. We're trying to lower the barrier to entry so low that you can step over it, even if you're trembling.
So let's look at what those barriers are first. The source identifies 4 distinct psychological walls that keep us silent. We touched on the fear of judgment, but there's more nuance to it. The first one they list is the fear of mistakes, or what they call the illusion of perfection.
This is that false equivalency where we link grammar to intelligence. We think, if I use the wrong verb tense, this person is going to think I'm stupid. But the source makes a great point. Native speakers make mistakes all the time.
Yeah, Emily, the host of the Source podcast, she admits she sometimes says, I seen, instead of I saw.
Right. And if she said that to you, would you think she's unintelligent? Of course not. You'd know exactly what she meant. The insight here is that communication is about the message, not the medium. Listeners are practical. They just want to understand you. They aren't mental copy editors with a red pen.
But that ties right into the second barrier they mentioned, perfectionism. It feels like this high standard we have to hit, but the source frames it as a trap.
Oh, it's a huge trap. Perfectionism is really just procrastination in a fancy suit. It's a defense mechanism. The logic is, if I don't speak until I'm perfect, I can never be criticized.
Which means you never speak.
Exactly. You end up in this catch-22 where you can't learn to speak without making mistakes, so you just never speak at all.
Yeah.
The source suggests replacing the word perfect with good enough. Did you get the coffee you ordered? Then your English was good enough.
Then there's the third barrier, which I think is maybe the most damaging, especially in the age of social media. The comparison game.
Ah, the chapter 1 versus chapter 20 problem. You're struggling to just say hello, and you look at the person next to you who's, rattling off a joke in fluent English, and you immediately judge yourself against them.
But you don't see their backstory.
You don't see anything. Maybe they've lived in the country for 10 years. Maybe they grew up bilingual. Maybe their partner is a native speaker. It's an unfair fight.
It's setting yourself up to fail.
It's masochism, really. The source emphasizes that the only valid comparison is longitudinal you versus you from last month.
Huh.
If you know 10 more words today than you did yesterday, you are winning. End of story.
The final barrier they mention is a bit heavier. Trauma. And they don't mean that lightly.
No, not at all. A lot of people have genuine scar tissue around language learning. Maybe it was a harsh teacher who humiliated them in front of the class, or that one time a room full of people laughed at a mispronunciation.
Oof.
That creates a very real neural pathway that links speaking English with pain. And you can't just get over that. You have to overwrite it. You need to flood your system with new, safe, positive experiences to kind of dilute that old memory.
Which brings us to the solution, the 10 steps.
Yeah.
We're going to build those positive experiences, but we're starting in what I like to call the safe bubble.
I like that.
Steps 1 through 3 involve 0 other human beings.
This is so crucial. We're stripping away the social variable entirely at the beginning.
So step 1, speak to yourself. Now, I do this anyway, usually when I can't find my keys, but they have a very specific method here.
They do. The instruction is to narrate your life in real time using simple present tense. I am walking to the kitchen. I am pouring water. The water is cold.
Why simple present tense? Why not, try to tell a more complex story?
Because we want to minimize cognitive load.
Hmm.
If you try to tell a story about your childhood, you get stuck on past tense, grammar, vocabulary, and the whole flow just stops. The goal of step 1 is purely mechanical. We are just connecting the brain to the mouth.
Just getting used to the feeling of it.
Yeah, getting you used to the physical sensation of English words coming out of your face.
And the commitment is tiny. 2 minutes.
2 minutes a day. That completely removes the I don't have time excuse. You can do this while you're brushing your teeth or making toast. It's about building the habit of production. Most learners spend 100% of their time on consumption reading, listening, watching TV. You have to switch the factory from input to output, even if it's just for 120 seconds.
Okay, so step 2 is similar, but it involves a prop, reading out loud.
This addresses a slightly different problem. When you speak to yourself, you have to both generate the language and produce the sound. That's double duty for your brain.
Right.
When you read out loud, the generation part is already done for you. The sentence on the page is already perfect.
So you can just focus entirely on the mouthfeel, on the production?
Exactly. On pronunciation, intonation, rhythm. You're literally training the muscles of your jaw and your tongue to move in these new English ways. The source suggests 5 minutes a day for this. And if you don't know how a word sounds, just use technology. Listen to it on Google Translate, then mimic it.
Step 3 is the one that I think makes people wince, the recording booth.
Oh, yeah.
You have to record yourself speaking.
The dreaded playback.
Why do we hate hearing our own voices so much? It seems to be universal.
It's biology. We mostly hear ourselves through bone conduction vibrations in our skull, which makes our voice sound deeper and richer to us. A recording is air conduction, so it sounds kind of tinny and foreign.
But you have to get past that.
For language learning, getting past that cringe is vital. You absolutely cannot improve what you cannot measure.
So the task is to record yourself for 1 minute. And the rule is, don't stop.
That's the rule. If you stumble, you keep going. If you mess up the grammar, you keep going. You are practicing fluency, which literally means flow. If you stop every 3 seconds to self-correct, you're not practicing fluency, you're practicing hesitation.
And then you have to listen to it.
And you listen to it like a scientist, not like a judge. You're looking for just one thing to fix. Oh, I see I dropped the eds on all my third-person verbs. Great. That's your data point for next week. It turns that vague, awful feeling of I'm bad at English into a concrete, solvable problem.
Okay, so we spent some time in the safe bubble. We're talking to ourselves, we're reading to the wall, recording on our phones. Now, the source says we have to crack the door open a little bit.
Just to crack.
We're entering the low-stakes interaction phase, steps 4 through 6.
So we're introducing an audience now, but we're keeping the threat level as close to 0 as possible.
Step 4 involves what they call the non-judgmental audience.
Otherwise known as your cat, or your dog, or your succulent plant, if you have one.
I laughed when I read this, but it actually makes perfect sense.
It's brilliant, isn't it? A dog provides the illusion of social interaction. You're looking at eyes, you're speaking to a living being, but the affective filter, that big wall of anxiety, it stays down because, deep down, the dog isn't analyzing your use of the subjunctive mood.
He just wants you to throw the ball.
Exactly. It perfectly bridges that psychological gap between being alone and being with people.
Okay, step 5 is where we actually leave the house. Scripted, real-world encounters. This is all about using the predictability of the world to your advantage.
Think about a simple transaction like ordering a coffee. It's basically a script, right?
Covered.
You know exactly what the barista is going to ask. What can I get you? For here or to go? Cash or card?
So you can preload all the answers.
That's it. You rehearse the script before you even walk in the door. You memorize your lines. This gives you a safety net. And the beauty of it is the entire interaction is maybe 30 seconds long.
And the stakes are what?
It's non-existent. If you completely mess up and say, coffee, please, yes, they will still give you the coffee. They just want your money. And you will almost certainly never see that person again. It's a perfect little testing ground to get that dopamine hit of, I just used English in the real world and I survived.
Step 6 moves us into the digital realm. Digital communities.
We live in the golden age for this. I mean, Discord servers, Reddit, apps like HelloTalk or Tandem. The huge advantage here is the delete key.
You have a buffer.
You have a buffer. In a face-to-face conversation, you have to respond instantly.
Yeah.
In a text chat or a forum post, you can take 10 minutes to craft your sentence. You can check the dictionary. You can rewrite it 5 times. It lets you participate in a real conversation without the time pressure.
And these communities are usually full of other learners, right?
Precisely. So the whole vibe is we're all in the same boat. You aren't the stupid foreigner crashing the native speakers party. You're a peer among peers, and everyone is helping each other out.
Okay, listeners, take a deep breath. Because now we are officially leaving the shallow end. The floaties are coming off. We're entering what the source calls the deep end, real conversation. Steps 7 through 10.
This is where the rubber meets the road. But remember, if you've done the first 6 steps, you've done the prep. You aren't going in cold.
Step 7 is the one-on-one. So this would be a targeted conversation with a tutor or a language exchange partner.
The key word here is control. You absolutely do not want to just show up to a session and say, okay, let's talk. That is a recipe for awkward silence and total panic.
You'll just stare at each other.
Yeah, you want to control the terrain.
So you pick a topic beforehand.
You pick a topic you know well. My hobbies, movies I like, my job. If you choose the topic, you can predict the vocabulary, you can prep a little cheat sheet of words you might need. You are essentially fighting on your home turf.
And the source recommends keeping it short.
Yeah.
Right, like 15 minutes.
Yes. Speaking a foreign language burns glucose like crazy. It is physically exhausting. If you try to go for a full hour on your first real attempt, your brain will turn to mush. You'll get frustrated and you'll want to quit. A 15-minute sprint is manageable. You can survive 15 minutes of anything.
Step 8 then ramps up the difficulty. Group dynamics.
This is exponentially harder. In one-on-one, the tutor waits for you. They'll slow down for you. In a group like a language class or a meetup, the conversation just moves. People interrupt, people laugh.
It's chaotic.
It is. So your strategy has to change completely. You aren't trying to run the meeting or be the star of the show. The source suggests setting a micro goal, something like, I will say 3 things. Just 3.
And they mention something called entry phrases.
These are your secret weapons. You memorize phrases that buy you a ticket into the conversation. Simple things like, I agree with that. That's an interesting point. Can I just add something?
They don't mean much on their own.
They're meaningless in themselves, but they act like a wedge. They open the door just enough for you to slip your actual thought in right behind it.
Step 9. We have reached the boss level. Spontaneous chaos.
This is it. The unplanned encounter. Someone at the gym asks if you're using the weights. A colleague stops you by the water cooler. No script, no prep.
This is where the panic usually hits the hardest for me.
For everyone. But this is where you learn the art of reframing the pause. When we get nervous, a 1-second silence feels like an hour. We feel this intense pressure to answer immediately, like a machine gun.
But the source says pausing is actually a power move.
It really is. If you pause for a second and say, we think about that, you don't look stupid. You look thoughtful. You look intelligent. It buys you 5 critical seconds to find your verb, and the other person just thinks you're depthly pondering their very deep question.
And finally, step 10. The lifestyle shift.
This is basically graduation. This is where you stop studying English and you just start living in it. It's all about the habit stack.
Meaning it's just part of the furniture of your daily life.
Right. You talk to yourself in the shower. That's step 1. You read a tweet out loud on your phone. Step 2. You have your chat with your tutor on Thursday. Step 7. It's not this big session you have to psych yourself up for. It's just what you do. When speaking English becomes boring and routine, that's when you know you've won.
Now, even with this amazing plan, things will go wrong. And the source includes a great section called the emergency toolkit, because the panic will come back.
It's inevitable. You'll have a bad day. You'll forget a simple word. The toolkit gives you strategies to handle that moment so you don't spiral into quitting.
Okay, so strategy 1 is acceptance.
Just acknowledge the fear. Say to yourself, okay, I'm nervous right now. And that's okay. Nervousness is just a form of alertness. Fighting it takes up so much energy. Accepting it frees that energy up for the actual speaking.
Strategy 2 is the focus shift. This one really resonates with me. Stop asking, am I being perfect? And start asking, did they understand me?
It's a total metric shift. If you asked for the bathroom and they pointed you towards the bathroom, you succeeded. It doesn't matter if you used the wrong gender or the wrong tense or you gestured wildly. The transaction was successful. That is a win.
Strategy 3 is physical grounding.
When your brain starts to spin out, use your body. Feel your feet on the floor. Name 5 blue things you can see in the room. It forces your brain out of that abstract panic loop and back into the physical present.
And strategy 4 is the safety phrase.
Everyone needs one of these. You have to have a phrase loaded in the chamber, ready to go. Something like, sorry, I'm still learning English. Can you give me a moment?
It's like a magic spell, isn't it?
It is. It instantly changes the other person's demeanor. They go from, why is this person being so weird? To, oh, they're a learner. I should be helpful and patient. It buys you so much grace.
There's also a specific protocol for when you make a mistake during a sentence. The mistake protocol.
The number 1 most important rule, do not stop. Do not apologize profusely. Do not go all the way back to the start of the paragraph.
Just plow through.
Momentum is more important than accuracy in the moment. Correct it if you can do it quickly, like in a split second, but otherwise just keep moving. But, and this is the key, when you get home, you write it down.
The post-game analysis.
Exactly. You write down what you wanted to say, you write down the correct way to say it, and then you say the correct version out loud 5 times. You have to physically overwrite the muscle memory of the mistake with the muscle memory of the correction.
You know, this whole deep dive has been very tactical, very practical, but I want to end on the philosophical point the source makes. They talk about defining success down.
This is so important. We tend to have this very binary view of fluency. You are either a fluent native speaker or you are a failure. That is just a recipe for misery.
Because native level is so far away.
It's years, maybe decades away. If that is your only definition of success, you are going to feel like a failure every single day for a very long time.
So we need micro wins.
We need to celebrate the small stuff. Did you successfully order that coffee? Celebrate it. Did you make a joke and someone actually laughed? That's the holy grail, by the way.
It really is.
Humor in a second language is incredibly difficult. If you land a joke, you are a wizard. You should take the rest of the day off.
Or even just that moment when you forget that you're speaking English for a few seconds.
That flow state,
Mhm.
yeah. You have to reward those moments. Associate English with dopamine, not with cortisol.
David leaves us with one final thought in the source material, and honestly, it's a bit of a heavy truth. He says the fear never completely goes away.
It's the paradox of courage. He admits that even now, as an advanced speaker, he still gets nervous sometimes. But he realized that waiting for confidence to arrive before you speak is a trap. You'll just be waiting forever.
So you have to reverse the order of operations.
You have to. Confidence is the result of speaking, not the prerequisite. You have to act first. The feeling follows the action, not the other way around.
Start now, scared.
That's the mantra. Do it while your hands are shaking. That is the only way the shaking eventually stops.
So we aren't going to let you leave without a challenge. The source issues a specific task for you, the listener, to try this week. I promise, it's not scary. It's just steps 1 and 2.
For the next 7 days, we want you to commit to 7 minutes a day. That's it. Step 1, speak to yourself for 2 minutes. Step 2, read out loud for 5 minutes.
That is it. You don't have to talk to another human. You don't have to leave your house. Just 7 minutes of pure output.
Prove to yourself that you can be consistent. Prove to yourself that the world doesn't end when English comes out of your mouth.
And just remember, every fluent speaker you admire was once a beginner. They once froze in a coffee shop. They once wanted to hide in the bathroom at a party.
The only actual failure is quitting. Everything else is just data.
So go talk to your cat. Go narrate your breakfast. Start now. Scared. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.